Good afternoon. It's Friday, the 22nd of September 2017, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. I'm your host, Brian Gerrish. With me in the studio, of course, is Mike Robinson. And we are joined today by David Scott, Northern Exposure, and of course, David reporting, amongst other things, on matters north of the border. Well, I think we should get straight into the snake lady.
Treason in Florence today, Brian. Treason in Florence. And of course, Theresa May is in Florence meeting with political leaders, national leaders from various European Union countries, because she says she wants to try, well, the indications are that she wants to try to bypass the European Commission with regard to Brexit negotiations, this charade of Brexit negotiations. She's there to make some offers and see whether she can get some support from national leaders. So the Lancaster House speech moves to the Santa Maria Novella in Florence. Well, what's she talking about? Recognition that a 2-year transition deal is going to be required. So that means that basically Brexit will come to a stop for 2 years while there's a transition process which goes on, and that's going to be required after 2019. So already Brexit is pushed out from March 2019 to March 2021 if she makes this offer, which looks like she's going to do. There are going to be 20 billion euros worth of payments made, and she's going to make citizens' rights have direct effect in UK courts. So she's moving them out of the realm, or she's attempting to move them out of the realm of the European court, European courts into British courts, but basically it'll be the same deal. She's going to say, if we can do that, then when this chapter of our European history is written, it will be remembered not for the differences we faced, but for the vision we showed, not for the challenges we endured, but for the creativity that we used to overcome them, not for a relationship that ended with a new partnership. That ended, but a new partnership that began. So again, we've got this language from Theresa May and the British government. Brexit is not about leaving anything, it's about entering a new thing. And that new thing, of course, is going to be exactly the same as the old thing, but that's another story. While the UK's departure from the EU is inevitably a difficult process, it is in all of our interests, she said, for negotiations to succeed. So I believe we share a profound sense of responsibility to make this change work smoothly and sensibly, not just for people today, but for the next generation who will inherit the world we leave them. The eyes of the world are on us, but if we can be imaginative and creative about the way we establish this new relationship. So, new relationship, that's what it's all about, Brian.
And that statement is a killer, Mike, because we've got to be imaginative and creative. Why have we got to be imaginative and creative? Because the eyes of the world are on us. So what she's really saying is we're being watched. We know we're being watched very carefully. So we can't be truthful. We've got to start using creative, manipulative, misleading language in order to stitch up this new partnership with the European Union. So we'll say that it was, of course, only the UK column that started to talk about Brexit being a complete psyop, is what you called it in the beginning, Mike. And we've been proved 100% right. There is no Brexit.
And anybody who's paying attention may have noticed that Michael Heseltine making some comments about this in the last couple of days, saying that in his opinion, Brexit probably isn't going to happen. And in fact, more than that, Britain will eventually join the euro.
Yeah. So,
and perhaps that leads into what we're about to discuss.
So we've got the British Prime Minister openly saying the intention is to deceive the nation. That brings us straight back to Ted Heath, because of course all the evidence was there that Ted Heath, together with his Tory government, deliberately misled the nation into the start of the whole procedure. And that is why at the moment that the Wiltshire police investigation into Ted Heath as a possible paedophile starts to really show us how the politics have been manipulated. And I will ask the question, was Prime Minister Ted Heath blackmailed over the subject of the abuse of children? Right, well, let's follow on with Brexit. We've got more proof that the thing is not working. The Major General, the Commandant General of the Royal Marines, McGowan, has been tweeting. This is his tweet. It's not very clear, but from the screenshot, But he says, delighted to welcome Director General of the EU Military Staff, Lieutenant General Polkinen, to hashtag #OpAtlantaHQ to discuss counter-piracy ops transition planning. And the next part of this is that our very own David Ellis tweeted, this photo is of the EU C3 military HQ, hashtag RN, hashtag HQ, hashtag Northwood, isn't it? So David Ellis from Strategic Defence Initiatives put the question directly to the Commandant General of the Royal Marines. This is the EU military HQ in Northwood, London. David Ellis went on to say the others are in Paris, Potsdam and Greece. And he identifies that this has been mentioned by veterans for Britain and Admiral Philip Jones. And then we get a further response from the Major General, and he says that is correct. So there is no doubt now that what we've got is the full EU military C3 command, control and communications has now been fully integrated into the British national structure. And so we have here in front of us EU military unification, Mike, and we've got the head of the Royal Marines casually, almost in an arrogant, joking way, I think, confirming it. So once again, we can demonstrate that particularly the Conservative government simply lying and lying and lying again to the general public in Britain over this subject of EU military unification. It's happened. And if you want a little bit of other proof here, Financial Times article, Britain is now willing to pay into the, quote, 5.5 billion euro EU defence fund. So BBC sort of also followed this up with the Prime Minister was to make the EU an open and generous offer. So the whole picture is here. We are locking things together. We've already locked the military together. We just need the Treasury. But as supposedly the front end is Brexit. So we better drop in Brexit. What Brexit?
Yes, and let's bring David Scott into the programme at this point, because David, as the Irish Times is pointing out here, Brexit, of course, being used to drive a number of different policy agendas, and one which seems to be continuing to bubble under the surface is this whole issue of the Northern Irish border and British-Irish relations. So what are the main points they're making here?
Yeah, this is showing that whether Brexit is real, and I'd like to come back to that in a moment, or how real it actually is, notwithstanding, the political statement from it is having profound repercussions all around the world. It's changing how people view many, many things. And this has been most quickly brought to light in Ireland. The Irish Times here says that the inescapable impression is of two friends steadily growing apart. For 40 years, Dublin has looked to London as its closest ally on the issues that mattered most. Now it finds itself sitting across the table with the EU27 seeking to position itself with new alliances for a new era. So the geopolitical move is that Ireland, it would appear, is going to remain locked in to a European superstate. It looks like they're making that decision. That's the drift just now, and that even with all the compromises about Brexit, the position taken by the British people is putting a pull that's taken Britain into a much more independent position against the will of its establishment and of its politicians, despite everything they are trying to do, and that other nations are having to respond accordingly.
Yes, well, I mean, we wait to see what the implications of that are. All kinds of nonsense being talked regarding setting up borders between Northern Ireland and the UK and the mainland of the UK. This issue, of course, has broader implications, and part of it's being driven, of course, because some people are saying that that situation is so untenable over the Northern Irish border that there actually can't be a Brexit.
Well, I mean, yes, but we've muddled past before with the Northern Irish border, and the idea that would derail Brexit. I don't think is sustainable. What it might well do, though, is destabilise the island of Ireland, and that could be very grim indeed.
Yeah.
Can I just come briefly back to the report you started off with? 20 billion.
Yes.
20 billion. Is that euros or pounds?
Euros.
Euros. Well,
not that it makes any difference anymore.
What difference does it make anymore? 20 billion. That's something like 6 years of contributions to the EU from Britain. So we are paying upfront for 6 years to get out, and then, well, what after that? What will happen? We'll go back in and join the euro. It's a very strange figure. Why on earth would we pay that? What is that? Is that 6 years from 2019 or from 2021? When are we actually free from the requirement to pay into this?
David, with a smile on my face, I have to interject and say, but we're not going to become free because there is no intention. The only way we're going to become free is when the wider British public say that they've had enough of this scam by Theresa May's Tory government.
Yeah, look, what's actually going on here is that we're moving from a position where we're members of the European Union to a position where we're members of the European Union, but it's going to be there's going to be a transition period between those two forms of membership. And in the meantime, we're going to pay this 20 billion euros to make sure that everybody's sweet while this transition's happening. But where we're going to end up, I believe, and I think we probably all will agree on this, is that the new relationship that we end up with the European Union will be one where defence union is at the centre, fiscal union is going to be at the centre, where it's going to be a new European Union, a new European Union which has experienced a renaissance, and it's going to be a full federal situation. It's not going to be what we've got at the moment. So we are transitioning into something, but it's not Brexit.
And to finish the process, they simply need to get rid of Westminster in its present form, and that's already, of course, under discussion. And the rise of the city-states and the power given to individual states, city-states, is going to help that process. We better move on.
We better move on. Sorry, David.
My point is the 20 billion gives some sort of indication of what the timeline is.
Absolutely.
Because when does 20 billion equal our current contributions? That might be an interesting date to calculate.
Absolutely.